Hello everyone, and welcome to another random video on the internet. Today we're going back to Naruto content after quite a long break. And we're coming back with a topic that I've wanted to discuss for a pretty long time now. I think I teased it in like the end of summer, so yeah, been quite a while. What would have happened if Kabuto had managed to capture Naruto and B during the war arc? Well, let's find out. First of all, when and how could this have happened? There's a point when it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say it could have occurred, and that is during Naruto and B's fight with Edo Nagato. Nagato was handling both of them like children, and if Itachi hadn't intervened, or if Nagato managed to deal with Itachi, both of the jinchūriki would have fallen into Kabuto's hands. So in this scenario, let's say that either Nagato deals with B and Naruto before Itachi can save them, leaving him in a one-on-one against the Uchiha and then he wins, or he just 1v3s all of them at once and beats them. Whether you believe he could actually do either of those or not doesn't really matter, as for the premise of this video, one of these has to happen. So let's say Kabuto uses Nagato wisely and manages to deal with all three of his foes here. What's the situation now? Well, first of all, Itachi is out of the picture. He's been sealed in Chibaku Tensei or had his soul ripped out, so he's not coming into play anytime soon here. Or at all, really. Now the question we have to answer is what Kabuto would do with B and Naruto now that he has them. I think the answer is pretty blatant. Originally, he wanted the 8 and 9 tails in his possession to gain the upper hand over Obito, and he also wasn't hesitating to go for the kill against Naruto and B in their battle with Nagato. Seriously, he was about to rip Naruto's soul out and blast B into oblivion, so he's clearly not above killing those two. I believe his plan was most likely to kill them and then bring them back as Edo Tensei summons. So just like Obito has the Edo Jinchūriki on his side, Kabuto will now have two of the strongest ones on his side. And of course, the biggest obstacle the Snake Man has to worry about is definitely going to be Obito. Speaking of which, Zetsu will undoubtedly very quickly find out what happened and inform Obito of this development. Obviously, the Uchiha will be very displeased. He'll probably curse at Kabuto, calling him a sly bastard and stuff like that, before deciding to confront him and heading to Kabuto's current location. He would definitely know where the Snake Man is, as Zetsu would definitely know and relay that information to him. You could argue that Obito could just kamui to Kabuto right then and there, but it's unclear if he would be able to. We know that he needs to know the location, but he also says at one point that he needs to mark a spot to be able to go there, maybe sort of like flying Raijin. It could just be that he needs to know the spot's exact coordinates, but he might also have to have been in a location at some point to be able to teleport there, and we don't know if Obito has ever been in the cave where Kabuto is located. So for now, I'll proceed with the assumption that Obito will have to physically run to Kabuto, which will give Kabuto a lot more time to prepare. Because honestly, if Obito can just kamui to Kabuto, then things would go really badly for Kabuto, and it wouldn't make for a very interesting scenario. So Obito and his jinchūriki will be speeding to where Kabuto is, and Kabuto is intelligent. He'll definitely have enough brain power to realize that he's just severely pissed off the man claiming to be Madara Uchiha, and prepare for a confrontation. He'll begin by bringing pretty much every Edo Tensei he has left back to himself in order to have as much battle power as possible against Obito and his Bijuu. So let's talk about how much battle power he actually has remaining. First of all, Kabuto has himself. He's a sage and is very powerful in his own right. And he also still has Nagato, who hasn't been sealed away in this situation. Edo, KCM Naruto, and Edo B are also pawns he has access to now. And from the canon timeline, the Edo Tensei who haven't been sealed away yet and are in any way, shape, or form relevant in this upcoming battle are the second Tsujikage and Mizukage, as well as the third Raikage. Another thing to consider is that even if B is dead and being controlled by Kabuto, Gyuki the Eight Tails isn't. Kabuto doesn't have chakra rods to control Bijuu. He just has control over B in this fight, and Gyuki could very easily choose not to help out. This could mean that Kabuto could only have base B as a summoning and wouldn't be able to access version 2 or Bijuu mode. That being said, Gyuki could still choose to help Kabuto in this scenario, because if Obito captures him and Kurama, it would mean the end of the world. So Gyuki might just go ahead and try to ensure that the lesser of the two evils wins. For this, let's say he does decide to help Kabuto, reluctantly. As for Naruto, he does have access to KCM because he's already stolen that chakra from the Nine Tails, but if the fight goes on long enough, he will run out of it. And I don't think Kurama would be willing to help Kabuto here if that happens. Despite the entire world being on the line, Kurama didn't help Naruto until Naruto proved that he was genuinely eager to help the Bijuu, and used Talk no Jutsu on Kurama multiple times throughout the war. So without that, I can't see Kurama helping Kabuto even if it ends up killing him. Plus Naruto is already dead and has no will of his own, so it's not like he could release the sealing jutsu keeping Kurama at bay like he did originally unless Kabuto wants him to. So for Naruto, he will have KCM for a while until he runs out of it, and B will have his version 2 and full Bijuu modes. All in all, it's a pretty powerful team, but depending on how much time Kabuto actually has, he could further increase his capabilities by sending these Edo Tensei out to other battlefields as a unit, and have them kill a bunch of shinobi and then bring them back as Edo Tensei. For example, he could have one of the remaining 7 ninja swordsmen summon the 3 Edo Kage and Nagato to Kakashi and Gai's unit. And Kakashi and Gai don't stand a chance unless Gai uses the 8th gate. So if this happens, Kabuto could definitely kill both of them and add them to his collection of summons. However, if Gai uses the 8th gate and obliterates all the Edos, then the Shinobi Alliance could use the opportunity to seal them away too. So it's a risky move for Kabuto. If that happens, Kabuto would be kinda screwed. Another thing that could also happen is Kabuto possibly making a temporary alliance with the Shinobi Alliance to help defeat who everyone thinks is Madara. It's really not that far-fetched to say that Kabuto could just go to any of the battlefields, show everyone that he has Naruto and B, and then offer to join them to beat Madara. And the alliance would be pretty much forced to comply as their strongest cards, the jinchūriki, are now gone. So they have the option of either helping Kabuto beat Madara or fighting both Kabuto and Madara. It would be a tough situation for them. So all in all, I see 3 ways this part of the story could likely go down. 1. Kabuto doesn't think to contact the Shinobi Alliance and just faces Obito with the forces he already has. 2. Kabuto offers an alliance to the Shinobi Alliance and they accept, so both of the groups team up to take down Obito. And 3. Kabuto tries to get the alliance to join him, but they refuse and the 3 sides pretty much have a free-for-all. There's still a 4th option, the one I mentioned before with Gai defeating all the Edo Tensei and the alliance sealing them away, but that's definitely the least interesting of the bunch, so I won't focus on it. The 3rd scenario is easily the most complex as it would depend on way too many factors. Which battlefield would Kabuto go to? If he goes to Gaara's group and they refuse to cooperate, he'd kill them and add Gaara and Inoki to his Edo summons. If he goes to Kakashi's group, Gai would use the 8th gate and either kill Kabuto if he's physically present there, or he could provide the alliance an opportunity to seal away Kabuto's summons. Where exactly is Obito and how long would it take for him to get to the battlefield where Kabuto is? How would the 5 Kage react to things and so on? There is just way too much going on here, so let's just focus on the first 2 scenarios. In the first one, Kabuto will wait until Obito arrives at his location. Obito will walk into the cave with his jinchūriki. He and Kabuto will talk for a bit, but inevitably a battle will break out. It's White Mask Obito and his 6 jinchūriki versus Sage Kabuto, Edo Nagato, Edo KCM Naruto, Edo B, A the Third, Mu, and Gengetsu. Now, I don't really want to return to Naruto power scaling, but I also do kind of want to return to Naruto power scaling. So I'm going to cover this versus battle and how I think it would go, but I won't be going too in-depth and just give you the general outline for the characters and how they would fare against each other. Also, I've already done a video on a similar topic, but it's probably outdated in all sorts of ways, and this battle has quite a few factors that video didn't cover. Plus, it was one of my earliest videos and was pretty poorly made. Still, if you want an in-depth look into how the characters and their abilities might interact with each other, it might be a good watch. I'm not sure, I haven't rewatched it in a long time, so I can't really say. And without any further ado, let's just jump right into the matchup. First of all, Obito is without a shadow of a doubt the strongest person present on the battlefield. I'll just play a little sped up clip from that old video to explain this.
He sees all of the crazy stuff that KCM2 Naruto can do and laughs. He can effortlessly block Rasengans from KCM Naruto, push Naruto back and make him wince just by casually swinging his weird fan, effortlessly keeps up with Guy and KCM Naruto at the same time in a taijutsu battle, catches and almost beats Naruto numerous times and other people have to constantly save him, phases through all of Naruto's, Guy's, B's and Kakashi's attacks, and is only ever damaged because of Kakashi's link with his Kamui dimension, tanks a Rasengan to the arm with 0 damage sustained. Seriously, he just keeps using the arm like nothing happened immediately afterwards. Like, you know that trope where anime characters will hold their hand even though a lot of the time the arm wasn't directly hit? Well, Obito's arm gets hit directly by a powerful attack and he doesn't even do that. Just a funny thing to point out. Obito also butts heads with KCM Naruto, gets headbutted by KCM2 Naruto and gets up like nothing happened, tanks a KCM2 Naruto Rasengan to the face and takes no damage from it, has the Rinnegan chains which are capable of bullying tailed beasts, immobilizes the A-tails using those same chains attached to the massive Rinnegan rods, anyone who touches the rods gets binded by chains. Obito can also use wood style that suppresses chakra, has Hashirama cells that greatly increase his vitality and grant him some level of regeneration, effortlessly reacts to KCM2 Naruto's attacks and phases through them, and the only time where KCM2 Naruto is able to really tag him without Kakashi's direct help is when Obito is going after Kakashi and isn't really paying any attention to Naruto. Obito is also able to instantly create a barrier big enough to protect the entire Geromazo and durable enough to withstand punches from fully transformed Killer B, and convince everyone on the battlefield that the only way to break the barrier would be to knock out or kill Obito. Obito actually wasn't even going for the kill the whole time against Naruto, he just wanted to capture him. Also, Obito throughout that whole battle was fixated on breaking Naruto's spirit. Even later on in the war, when Madara asks him how he wants to proceed, Obito, instead of just ordering the Ten Tails to kill everyone right away, chooses to instead slowly cripple their resolve. He was hell-bent on breaking Naruto and affirming to himself that the path he chose was the only correct path, and that Naruto, who reminds him of his previous self, is in the wrong. It's to fully convince himself that he's doing the right thing and that he didn't choose wrong, that someone like Naruto just can't be right. Otherwise, his whole life, decades of suffering and planning and hurting others and going down this dark path, may have been for nothing and just wrong. What I'm trying to say is that Obito was holding back the entire time, basically, trying to cripple Naruto's resolve instead of just outright capturing him or killing him. Obito can also use the Rinnegan jutsu, though it would be really taxing on his chakra reserves, and it's already pretty hard to maintain control over all the Biju, so he'll only use it if absolutely necessary. Obito can also summon the Geromazo, which itself is an extremely powerful entity capable of causing wide-scale destruction with its chakra and Biju-level physical feats. Seriously, Obito is insane.
And I will also play another sped-up clip from that video to explain everything Kabuto can do.
Lastly, we have Kabuto, who is undoubtedly the strongest and most tricky member of his team. His snakes can sense people and track them using their heat signature. He can make his snakes grow bigger in a matter of seconds. He can substitute himself with the snakes. He can shed his skin to avoid fatal damage, regenerate, has Uzumaki levels of vitality, can liquefy himself like Sugetsu, has great sensory capabilities, can mask his chakra presence, is a perfect sage, can block all visual genjutsu, can shoot this weird dragon that explodes and nullifies all of the opponent's senses, can dislocate his jaw, allowing him to swallow and capture his targets, can't be caught off guard by physical attacks, can manipulate inorganic matter, allowing him to control the environment, can produce and shoot webs that can't be cut using a regular blade, can use genjutsu that was strong enough to capture Sasuke and Itachi and they needed each other's help to break free of it, can use Earth Style like Jirobo could, can use the Bone Keke Genkai like Kimimaro could, can fuse with the body of his targets and kill their cells from the inside using Sakon's jutsu, can use Orochimaru's snake form to capture people, blitzed Itachi multiple times in their fights, Itachi being relative to KCM 1.5 Naruto as I established in my Itachi vs Nagato video, broke through his Susanoo aura barrier, which Madara used to block these giant rods thrown by KCM 2 Naruto, can use Water Style, Fire Style, Chakra Blades, and he's the only one that can undo the Edo Tensei. Jeez, that was a lot to go through. Kabuto was also able to dodge Sasuke's Susanoo arrow, and that's impressive because a weaker, non-EMS Sasuke was able to completely blitz both Danzo and pre-war arc Kakashi with this arrow. I mean, just look at Sasuke's reaction, this is clearly a big feat. Kabuto's nature manipulation was also fast enough to the point where Itachi didn't have the time to put up a full skeletal Susanoo with just a hand to protect Sasuke. As a reminder, a sick Itachi was able to put up a full Susanoo to protect himself from Kirin, which moves incredibly quickly, and that was sick Itachi, not Edo Itachi, who's faster, stronger, and can perceive things much better and so on. Kabuto was so OP that Kishimoto had to come up with this new Aspal jutsu that we'd never seen before called Izanami, and give it to Itachi so that he and Sasuke could win. To be perfectly honest, if Izanami didn't exist, in a 1v1 battle, Edo Itachi versus Sage Kabuto, no holding back, going straight for the kill, I genuinely think that Kabuto would take it more times out of 10 than Itachi would. But I don't know, that might have to be a video of its own.
As for all the other combatants in this fight, generally the Edo Kage present are able to react and keep up with KCM levels of speed, and so are the jinchūriki under Obito's control. Edo B and Edo KCM Naruto would be the strongest jinchūriki on the battlefield, but not by an extremely wide margin. Another thing to consider is that Obito never really fights alongside his Bijuu. He just sends them out to fight while he himself stays back. Obito also doesn't have the jinchūriki start out in their full Bijuu or even version 2 states, he just has them be in their base form at first. And the explanation for all this is that it's most likely hard for Obito to fight while also controlling the Bijuu, so he kind of sends them out as the first wave of attack, and if they aren't enough, he'll power them up over time until they beat the enemy or lose, at which point Obito himself would step in. So how would this battle play out? Right off the bat, Kabuto is going to enter Sage mode, and since the fight is starting in a cave, Kabuto will have the advantage because he can control the terrain around them. Obito, with the shared vision of the Rinnegan, will have no blind spots and will be able to see any incoming attacks. I think the first thing that he's likely to do once he realizes just how much of an advantage Kabuto has in the cave is have one of the jinchūriki go into version 2 and blow the cave open to get rid of Kabuto's advantage. Next, Obito would likely stand back while he sends the jinchūriki out to attack Kabuto and his group. And since everyone in Kabuto's group is fast enough to keep up with the base jinchūriki, they wouldn't have trouble dealing with them. Kabuto will likely quickly figure out that his main ways to stop the jinchūriki would be to place a ceiling tag into their heads to stop them from moving, or destroy the Rinnegan rods implanted into their bodies. Both of these are valid options for him, and Kabuto's team has several ways to dispose of the rods. Mu can particle style them out of existence, the third Raikage can destroy them with his attacks, Kabuto doesn't need to rely on destroying them and would instead try to stop them with ceiling tags, and Nagato can either pull out their souls, or destroy the rods with missiles or laser beams, or destroy the rods with Shinno Tensei. He might also be able to pull them out with Bansho Tenin, but I don't think he can use the jutsu that precisely. Naruto can destroy them, B can destroy them, it's really not an issue. Obito's team, on the other hand, doesn't really have any way to seal the Edo Tensei summons aside from Obito himself using the Rinnegan chains or the human path. He could also try to use the Rinnegan abilities through the jinchūriki, but we see in character that he doesn't really do that. So Kabuto's team would barely have taken any losses for the time being, seeing as they have many fighters who can cover each other's weakness as well. The base jinchūriki do have some abilities that could definitely threaten Kabuto's team, like Yagura's Water Mirror, which he could use to decimate the Raikage. But overall, the base jinchūriki aren't doing much, and Obito might even lose one or two of them before he even has them go into version 2. When version 2 does come out though, things will definitely become more difficult for Kabuto's team, seeing as the base jinchūriki scale pretty comfortably to base B and KCM Naruto. Version 2 would start giving the Kage a hard time. This is where Nagato would be Kabuto's trump card though. He can easily get in close range with any of the jinchūriki and absorb their chakra for himself. And considering that he was able to do this to B, the second strongest jinchūriki, in seconds, means that he could definitely get at least a couple jinchūriki with this and power himself up quite a lot. This is where Obito would have to either cut his losses and retract the Bijuu into the Geromazo, or he could have them transform into full-tailed beasts. Obito would probably have already lost 2 or 3 jinchūriki, but the thing is, unless they get their soul extracted by Nagato, Obito could still get the Bijuu back because they aren't directly connected to the jinchūriki. So what I see happening is Obito will likely retract every Bijuu whose rod has been broken or who has been immobilized by Kabuto into the Geromazo, and have the remaining jinchūriki transform into full-tailed beasts. So now, how would Kabuto's team deal with 3 or 4 full-blown Bijuu? Well, we know that the third Hokage is able to brawl with the 8-tails without a problem. We also know that Mu can particle style them out of existence. Granted, he probably can't engulf an entire Bijuu in particle style, but just getting a good chunk of one's head should do the trick just fine. Nagato can also tank version 2B's Lariat while crippled, and now he's a lot stronger due to being healthy and having absorbed more Bijuu chakra. So regular attacks from the tailed beasts really aren't going to be effective against him, and his own attacks should be able to do damage to the Bijuu pretty comfortably. He can also just run up to them and start absorbing their chakra again. B can also enter his full 8-tails Bijuu mode to brawl with the Obito's tailed beasts. And how about tailed beast bombs? Well, Nagato might be able to absorb or deflect them, but more likely Mu could simply erase them from existence while they're still charging up. Gengetsu might also be able to use his Team Imp clone to explode the Bijuu bombs while they're still charging up. Kabuto could also likely use that dragon that deprives the target of all their senses to disrupt the Bijuu while they're still charging up their Bijuu bombs and either dispel them or possibly even make the Bijuu lose control completely and have the bombs explode in their faces. So really, even if the Bijuu come out, it's kind of still a stomp in Kabuto's favor. Obito would be wise to retract them into the Geromazo as soon as possible. And after all this is said and done, Obito would pretty much have to face the entire team by himself. I estimate that Kabuto may have lost 1 or 2 Edo summons at this point to Obito if he ever decides to attack while the jinchūriki are still on the battlefield, but overall, they should be relatively unscathed. And this is where... people are gonna get mad, but this is where Obito kind of begins solo stomping the entire group. No, seriously, the only one who could do anything would be Nagato, depending on how much Bijuu chakra he has absorbed at this point. Other than that, everybody else gets horribly speed blitzed. One question is if Obito could use Kamui to remove opponents from the battlefield. You could argue that he wouldn't be able to suck anything into the Kamui dimension because then he could be attacked from the other side. But Kabuto might not be able to control the Edo Tensei summons while they're literally in another dimension. Though if those summons are on autopilot, that might not matter, and as soon as they see Obito, they might attack. But even without using Kamui offensively, Obito can easily suck out anyone's soul with the human path because he's stronger than everybody there. The only ones potentially immune to this would be Nagato, because he might not be any weaker than Obito depending on how much Bijuu chakra he's absorbed by this point in the battle, and the third Hokage because of his chakra barrier. But Obito could absorb it with the Preta path and then still use the human path to take care of him. He can also use Rinnegan rods and chains to seal any Edo Tensei that Kabuto has at his disposal. So really the only ones who would be at all relative here are Kabuto and Nagato, Everybody else is getting bodied faster than Minato could run to the flower shop to buy a gift for Kushina for their wedding anniversary. And on top of all that, Obito doesn't even need to seal anyone other than Naruto and Bee. He might just grab the two of them, bind them up with Rinnegan chains, suck them into the Kamui dimension, and then leave. He doesn't even have to fight Kabuto and Nagato to win the battle. But I'm sure you've been screaming at me this entire time that Kabuto has one more summoning at his disposal. Madara Uchiha. When Kabuto sees that he's struggling, likely when Obito is decimating his entire team after the whole Bijou fight, he will undoubtedly summon Madara. And this could go two ways. One, Obito is able to grab Naruto and Bee and escape before Kabuto even activates Madara. Two, Madara wakes up, sees Obito fighting Kabuto, undoes the Edo Tensei of himself and breaks free of Kabuto's control. At this point, Kabuto would be completely screwed. He'd likely be killed by Madara in this scenario. So what happens next? Well, assuming that none of the Bijou have been killed by this point, by particle style, Madara would likely try to take control of Obito in order to force him to revive himself. But Obito isn't trusting of Madara at all and is likely to retreat into his Kamui dimension as soon as he has Naruto and Bee in his grasp. Even if Madara tries to take control of Obito before he can Kamui himself out of there, we've already seen that Obito is capable of resisting it, so he could definitely get out of there. He would then likely seal the 8 and 9 tails into the Geromazo and awaken the 10 tails while still inside the Kamui dimension. Then he would likely go confront Kakashi in one of the battlefields. He would suck Kakashi into the Kamui dimension and manipulate him into breaking the seal Madara has on Obito's heart. Once that's done, Obito would become a 10 tails jinchūriki. At this point though, he's kind of mindless for the time being. He'll need a bit of time to master the Jubi like he did in the original, and he will also need to learn to utilize Kamui while being a 10 tails jinchūriki, which he wasn't able to do in the original. But we also know that it is possible since Madara was able to do it, so I think that if Obito had some time to adjust himself and get used to being a Jubi jinchūriki, he would likely be able to learn to use Kamui at some point. Meanwhile, in the outside world, Madara would be left alone with Nagato and whatever other Edo Tensei summons still remain. And it's kind of difficult to say what he would choose to do here. I feel like he'd be aware enough of the power of a Jubi jinchūriki to realize that he definitely cannot take Obito on by himself anymore, at least not as he is right now. Madara would likely try to make Nagato revive him with Rinne Rebirth. I don't know if that would be possible though, seeing as Nagato is an Edo himself. However, Madara could also go to one of the battlefields or perhaps even the Shinobi Alliance headquarters, and then find someone with enough chakra to be able to use Rinne Rebirth. White Zetsu has one of Madara's original Rinnegan, so all Madara would have to do is put someone like A the 4th under Genjutsu, implant the Rinnegan into him, and have him revive himself. Then Madara would take the Rinnegan back from whatever person he just manipulated and pop it into his own eye socket. So now Madara is back to life and has a Rinnegan. And just for the fun of it, let's say Nagato regained his personality after Kabuto died and is tagging along because that seems like a Kishimoto thing to do to make the story more interesting. So now the main players in the story are Obito, who's currently in the Kamui dimension trying to master the Jubi, Madara, who's just come back to life, Nagato, who's tagging along with Madara in hopes of stopping Obito, the 5 Kage, who are useless, Guy, who's probably on some random battlefield, and Sasuke, who we're going to talk about right now. Sasuke is going to be fresh after receiving his EMS, and he also just learned about the war from White Zetsu. But with Itachi being sealed away at this point, Sasuke wouldn't encounter him and wouldn't go fight Kabuto. It's hard to say what he would do. His only goal at this point was to destroy the Leaf Village and kill Naruto. Originally, after his fight with Kabuto, Sasuke went to Konoha right away to talk to the previous Hokage, But here, he didn't talk to Itachi, Orochimaru hasn't been brought back, and without those factors, he wouldn't have any way to talk to the Hokage. So it's a question of whether Sasuke would prioritize destroying Konoha or killing Naruto. And both decisions are possible, but I'll go with Sasuke wanting to kill Naruto first and heading to the battlefield because that makes for a more interesting story. At the same time, Madara will likely be confronted by the Five Kage, but he will likely refuse to fight them and instead explain the situation with Obito. Fighting right now doesn't benefit him at all, and if anything, making an alliance with the Shinobi army is a positive for him, since it means there's more bodies to throw at Obito once he returns, and it would potentially give Madara the opportunity to gauge Obito's power and see what kind of jutsu he has at his disposal now before engaging him in a fight himself. The Five Kage would likely give the entire army the order to gather in one place so they could combat Obito once he returns. One uncertain thing is where exactly Obito would return to, since he can teleport pretty much anywhere he pleases. Madara would likely make the assumption that his best bet would be to wait for Obito in the same spot where Obito originally entered Kamui to escape him. So that would be at the location of Kabuto's cave. Really, Obito could appear on the other side of the world potentially and launch the Infinite Tsukuyomi without issue. But let's say that that doesn't happen and he'll appear where the alliance is, just for the story's sake to make it more interesting. Sasuke would likely soon arrive to where everyone is as well. So when Obito eventually leaves the Kamui dimension after having mastered Kamui, he'll be confronted by a live one Rinnegan Madara, Edo Nagato with a bunch of Biju Chakra absorbed, early EMS Sasuke, Might Guy, and the Five Kage, as well as thousands of fodder ninja. And this is a slaughter. First of all, Madara doesn't have Hashirama Sage mode here, so he's considerably weaker than the one-eyed Madara we saw in canon. People often compare that stronger Madara to the Juubito we saw in the War Arc, and often lean toward Juubito taking the win in that matchup. So nerfing Madara by getting rid of his Sage mode, and buffing Juubito by giving him access to Kamui, yeah, it's not going to end well for Madara. And Limbo is getting countered completely since Obito has the Rinnegan to see it, as well as the Six-Path Senjutsu to sense it. Madara sadly is not doing anything here. Sasuke at this point is very fresh with his EMS, and he's also mentally conflicted. This Sasuke is way weaker than the one we already saw facing Juubito alongside Naruto, and for the most part getting bodied. Nagato is strong, but he's essentially just a Walmart version of Madara here, and we already know how well Madara would fare against Juubito. The Five Kage are, The only hope the Alliance has would be 8th Gate Guy, but there are several factors that make him a non-factor here. First of all, there's an argument for canon Juubito being able to defeat 8th Gate Guy. See this video, it will be linked in the description. And Juubito has Kamui here. Guy is going to open the 8th gate and give up his life, only to find out that he cannot hit his opponent thanks to Kamui and then die. And yeah, Obito would have won. He'd plant the God Tree and launch the Infinite Tsukuyomi. After that, he'll either sit around not doing much, or he'll kill himself, as grim as that sounds. I think he's more likely to stay alive though. I'm not entirely sure how he could kill himself in all honesty. But anyways, there are still a few loose threads to take care of. Firstly, Black Zetsu is around, and he'll be looking for an opportunity to sneak up on Obito to bring back Kaguya. But unlike Madara, Obito wouldn't trust Black Zetsu since he thinks Zetsu is Madara's will, and Madara is basically an enemy to him. Obito would likely dispatch Black Zetsu on the first chance he gets, so Kaguya is not coming back. Kakashi is dead because Obito would have likely killed him in the Kamui dimension while he wasn't in control of himself, and even if he didn't, Obito would have brought Kakashi back into the outside world, and he would be under the Infinite Tsukuyomi at this point, so he's not a factor. At some point, Obito would realize that the Infinite Tsukuyomi is actually turning people into Zetsu, so he'd have to either somehow change how the Tsukuyomi works or call it off entirely. I'm going to say he figures out how to change it, since Obito going through his entire plan and then finding out it was all for naught would be a bit too tragic, I think. Regardless of that, this is where Obito, and by extension the Earth, would meet its end, because Jigen would eventually pull up, and there is nothing Obito could do to stop him. Ishiki would likely make Obito into a vessel and reincarnate into him. And then he'd feed Jigen to his 10 tails, cultivate a chakra fruit, and that would be the end of the story. If Jigen doesn't take action for whatever reason, then Obito will sit around for a few years, probably siphoning chakra from the people trapped in the Infinite Tsukuyomi and gradually growing in strength. A few years later, Toneri is going to see what's happened on Earth, and he'll either leave it be because it's a lost cause, or he'll try to go down there. When he arrives, Obito will instantly sense him and go confront him. This is base Toneri we're talking about, so he would probably get wrecked by this Juubito who can not only use Kamui but has been steadily growing in power for the last few years. After that, time will pass and eventually Momoshiki, Kinshiki and Filler Shiki will pull up to his planet to claim a chakra fruit. There's no telling how strong Obito would be by now, but the gap between him from the end of the war and Momoshiki is enormous. And if Momoshiki is pushed far enough, he can eat Kinshiki and maybe even Filler Shiki, so I find it hard to believe that Obito could take them down, even with his strength boost and Kamui. But for the hell of it, let's say he just about manages to kill them somehow. I don't believe for a second that he could, but let's say he does. Well, Momoshiki would give him the Karma Seal, and now it's definitely the end for the planet. Momoshiki would eventually take Obito over. The only way he could counter this is by killing himself before the Karma Seal extracts all of Momoshiki's data into his body. But Obito would likely not even know what the karma does, and by the time he realizes, it might be already too late. And also, even killing himself wouldn't work for reasons that we see in the Boruto manga. Unless maybe he could kill himself twice or something. And besides, if Jigen didn't show up right after the war, then he's definitely showing up now, and even if somehow, some way, through some incredible 1 million IQ strategy, Obito somehow manages to kill Jigen, Ishiki is coming out, and at that point, it's wraps. But anyways, those are just my thoughts on the topic. I'd be interested to see what you think in the comments. If you've watched this far into the video, you're a boss, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your day. See you next time, goodbye.